get quiet down. We'll get started here in a few minutes. We are waiting the rest of their team with their computer presentation. But what I'll do while we're waiting, maybe to start with some of the introductions. Just so you know, I'm Jason Jeffries. I'm the city's Vero Beach Planning Director. This is the closing presentation for the Three Corners Charrette. This has been a week-long process. With all of you that have been involved, I'd like to thank you for your participation, involvement. It's been online, viewing it on Facebook, on the Speak Up Vero Beach, or in person with the Charrettes and the workshops we've had at the Vero Beach Community Center and some of our off-site locations. I also would like to thank Pastor Tim Womack and First Presbyterian Church for hosting us tonight. We expected we would overflow the City Hall auditorium, and I think we did. So we needed a space large enough to hold, and I think the seats, so we're already exceeding 300 here. I would like to introduce the city council members are here. Mayor Tony Young, Vice Mayor Laura Moss, council member Ray Neville, Joe Graves. It's been a long week. Oh, there he is. Ray Neville. There's Councilmember Ray Neville. And Robin Patrick. Oh, okay. Also, Monty Falls, the city manager, is here. John Turner, our city attorney, so he'll keep us in line. And Tammy Berkeley, city clerk, is taking notes. And with that, we are still waiting for their team. But okay, we'll start. Okay, I'll tell you what. Since I want to tell you a little bit where we are in terms of the planning process. As you know, what we're trying to do here is develop a vision for the reuse of this site. And we've gotten a lot of great ideas throughout this week and leading up to this week about what could be done there, or what the community would like to see to be done there. The contract required DBZ, Andres Galani's firm, to provide 5 scenarios to the city for the city to consider. And those different ideas that you have provided through the different online or in-person engagements are to be placed in those different scenarios using their professional expertise and how to design a site. We have been in the idea gathering phase. And, as any planning project starts, you start with the ideas. What are the concepts? What are the ideas the community has? And that's where we are in this phase. And we've been doing that since November 19th when we had the project kickoff at City Council before Christmas. And at that time, the online speakupverobeach.com was launched. And this has been up for 3 months. And with that, we've had, and I know Irina's here, who can confirm this, what, 10,000? 13,000. Oh, we're up to 13,000 views of the visits to the web.
13,500 site visits as of today, 1,400 registrations, people who signed up to receive more information and to engage, and 1,311 are activated participants.
Those are people submitting ideas, correct? So those are the people posting.
The second one's completed questionnaires.
Completed questionnaires.
Questionnaires, and then the third actually submitted ideas.
So this is, unprecedented in terms of the engagement we've had online. We're up to 13,000 people visiting the site. Then, you recall we had the public tours 2 Saturdays. We had over 1,000 people who visited the site. During this Charrette week, this is the 13th meeting. To date, we have had 680 people to meetings. With this, we're over 300, so we're getting up to close to 1,000 people, or over 1,000 participating in person. And I'd like to remind you that in 2005, the city did a vision plan, and with that, process and I think they had more distinct workshops in terms of that process. There was only 500 people participating in that planning process. And then in 2016, the city did the Art Village plan, which did do a Charrette process very similar to this, and only 125 people participated in that. Now that's for a very specific area of the city, but still so is this, even though this is quite a, I know a destination and it's very important to the city. So we have far exceeded what is our expectations in terms of participation. So this is, I think Andres will confirm this in terms of anything he's done, this is unprecedented. I can tell you in 25 years of my planning experience, I've never had a project with this amount of civic, and I've worked in larger communities, so just in terms of participation in a project. So to think if there were a community of 18,000 people and to have this type of engagement in the project. What we're working this week was about getting the rest of the ideas, starting to put them onto the concepts, into some kind of concept plans. They've shown different sketches to get the community's feedback. This is the end of the idea gathering phase of the project. So this is really critical that if you have any more ideas for the site tonight and or over the next week on the website, is the time to get those ideas presented to DBC or to the steering committee, which is part of this project. And then we'll move into the analysis of the 5 scenarios, and the city will have that discussion, and there will be more public meetings about that analysis of the feasibility of the 5 scenarios that are presented. But this is really the time, and what we're really focused on today, and I just don't want to stress that more, in terms of what we're doing today, is about the ideas of the site. And if you have any ideas or concepts you would like to see done with that property and it's not presented tonight, this is the time to do it. And the way we're going to run this tonight is Andres, once we get the computer here, will present. We are going to take public comment, but we're really going to focus on getting ideas. Monty is handing out cards, which you can use to put down your comments. And if there are anything related to ideas that we're missing on the site, that's what we're going to just provide as questions. So you'll just hand them forward, and we'll ask those questions of Andres. And then this is a formal steering committee meeting. We will open it up for steering committee and for the steering committee to have for their discussion. With that, kind of then Michael, I've stalled as much as I can. I'll turn it over to Dave.
Hi, I'm Vicki Gould. I'm the head of the steering committee, but I would like the steering committee to stand up. I would ask you to say your names. I don't know if you can be loud enough to do that without a mic. But yes. So Robbie Brackett, who's also on City Council, Linda Moore, who's one of the owners of Kilted Mermaid, Joe Graves, who's on City Council and owns his own law firm, Laura Moss, also on City Council, Joe Catuno, I'm sorry, John Catuno, sorry about that, I do know you, I'm sorry. Tony Young, who is mayor on City Council, First Lady of Vero Beach, Emily Lloyd, Mike Johansson, steering committee, Richard Baker, who most people know. And I just wanted, and you guys can sit down, you don't have to stay standing. And Mark Tritzin, yay! Okay. Long time Veroite. But I also wanted to take the opportunity to thank everybody for coming out. It's great to see you tonight. We've had a lot of meetings throughout the week, a lot of input. It's just been amazing. I can't believe this whole process because everybody has been able to have a voice, and I think that's extraordinary. But I also wanted to thank the team, Andres Duani, who I don't know how many people have heard of DPZ, but We are incredibly, incredibly lucky to have this firm here. And I just want to give the biggest thank you to them. Copy of all of his names and it just went out, so you can introduce your team. But everybody has been amazing. I walked in today to just check in on everybody, and every single person had their head down, just working so hard as they have every day. They're super creative and amazing. And I also wanted to thank those who came up with speakupverobeach.com. Elena? If you will stand up. Little Miller Fox, who's also runs Vero.com, and Susie Feeney, who's helped out greatly. We've also had some young people. If you want to stand up, you've been instrumental in getting young people involved, and we thank you very, very much. And I know it's hard because a lot of the young people are in school or have jobs or whatever, but I'm very grateful to everybody. And the public coming to help, the volunteers, we've had a lot of volunteers and participants. And just thank you, and I hope you enjoy this process. And
Well, I already did what I was supposed to do, so I'm going to turn it right over to Andres so we can get this. So,
But you can stand up there in order to be filmed, right?
yes.
Okay, great. Yep. I don't particularly like this position of being above, but that's where the camera gets me. And many people will see this on video. And so it's important that it actually be recorded exactly. This is not the most advantageous location because I'm speaking here, gesturing and so forth, and the image is over there. It's preferable that you look up there. Okay, regardless of how much noise and gestures I'm making, the show's up there, so try to remember. I would like to thank the Presbyterian Church, specifically for one thing. Thank you for having such a good projector. We have actually traveled to different venues to approach people rather than just have them come to us. We've been to the island, we've been to the airport, we've been to different areas, we've been to the really different venues, and often with a very bad projector in which half the colors don't show up and half the lines don't show up. It's really frustrating because the team tries so hard to actually make drawings that are crystal clear. And that brings up an issue. What we do here is not only absorb your ideas, but clarify them. This is about making you smart, so that the decisions, we do not make the decisions. What we do is make your decisions smarter. And the way we do that is by means of drawing. And it's very important that actually talk will get you a long distance, talk gets you very far, numbers get you very far, but drawing in a project of this really resolves things. So many things that you're afraid of, or you don't know whether they fit or where they go, you've got to draw it, and then it becomes an aha moment. And so what we've been doing, and what the team, it's a very large team, and we've worked, honestly, easily 10 hours. I've been talking, I think 14 hours a day, from 8 to 11, every single day. But it's really the drawings that make you smart. And finally, we have a great screen. Now, something about quantity of participation. This is indeed, after 40 years of doing charrettes like this is by far the most elaborate and well-attended, by far. And I think that's due to Irina and her team. Really amazing. But, okay, it's not about quantity. It's about representation. The important thing is not to have more and more people, but that the entire diversity of the community be represented. I would rather have 800 people that actually represent the youngest and the oldest and the poorest and the richest and the most easternmost and the most westernmost, all the diversity, because that is true democracy. than actually more and more people that are so, in fact, homogeneous. Okay? And the fact is that the young are, even today, and it's easy to tell, has something to do with color of hair, that the young persist in being underrepresented. Persist. So if you can all actually, when the time comes to make decisions, give them space. Okay, just give the young space. In fact, the way to do this is to say the youngest person present speaks first. Okay, and then the next youngest, and then the next youngest, and the next youngest. If the oldest and most, experienced and most experienced in a good sense, yet you all know what doesn't work. Okay, if you speak first, I have seen the young people roll their eyes and leave. Say, oh, this is the same old stuff. Okay? And when we were first actually interviewed for this, there was an incredible ambition. And one of the names was the Centennial Park. This park was to be the great contribution for a century to Vero Beach. And it is really the young that will use it, and the young of the young. And they're really different from you and me. I'm continually corrected and amazed by how they are. And some of the corrections that we have made in this presentation has to do that what I actually was the coolest is actually not so cool. And I said, really? And so they bring me the images, and they're desperate. They're absolutely desperate to have a nightlife. Just over and over and over again. And they're desperate to actually come back. They love it, like you all did. So many of you people have returned. They really want to come back, but they can't. There's just not enough going on. There's not enough place for them. So what I would urge you to do is to actually, in this process that will go until November, just give them space. Because that's what's missing. A democracy requires a representative sample. One of the extraordinary things, just to remind you of that, you know how polling organizations poll 800 people, right? 800 people. And they get within 3 percentage points of the solution of being accurate. How do they do that? Only 800 people on a national election. And the reason is that they're very, very, very careful about getting a representative sample. They make sure that everybody who's going to vote actually votes, then they nail it. And so I just urge you to say that the quantity, enough of quantity. Okay, enough. This is more than enough. You've gone the Nobel Prize for participation, as far as I'm concerned. Just get the diversity of people coming in, and then it'll be a great project. And this so far has not happened. Okay, so let's see whether the next few months actually make it for them. Second thing about this, you're absolutely right that this is a desperately important project. And it is because through the good luck of having 2 temporary holding facilities, the power plant and the wastewater treatment plant, in your most important corner, it actually held, for 60 years until you were able to do it. So this was a holding pattern for these two, for this intersection. This intersection, which is an extension actually is associated with US 1. It's not US 1, but it connects to US 1 north and south. This connects from Maine to Key West. Okay, it's one of the great, if not the great artery of America, and this is one of the great connections east-west in Florida. Florida is a ladder of east-west connections like that, up and down the island to the mainland. It's absolutely orderly all the way down. And although we all have grids like this, there's lots of grids almost continuously in Florida, it's only the ones that bridge across that are the important ones. And by the way, they're normally associated with the railway. So from the beginning, Florida was set up in a very orderly way. And this is one of the locations. So you were very lucky to preserve it to, I would say, your maturity. You're all here, you know what's happening. So this is as important an intersection as you really do think it is. Another thing about this particular, I've been doing this for 40 years. I don't do these processes now as I did before. I have realized that actually you must all understand that we don't decide and you don't decide ultimately the city council decides. And it is absolutely proper and correct that they decide. That's what they were elected to do. So when we have these meetings and I draw things, I'm very careful to say, we're not deciding, I'm just drawing your ideas. Okay? It's very important to know that I'm not like a waiter taking orders. And somehow it's interpreted like, well, didn't I order up a hamburger with pickles? Right? And then they come back to the next meeting and say, well, where are the pickles? Well, the pickles didn't fit with the next guy's hot dog. Or rather, the hot dog took the pickles. Okay, so you don't get your pickles where you wanted it. This is not a restaurant. Okay, we're trying to come up, it's a site that has an incredible capacity. But not everything can be here, and particularly not everything can be exactly where you want it. That's a special thing to know. It can't be exactly where you want it. Okay, and now that's just by way of instruction. So the reason we do different scenarios is so you know that we are not deciding. What we're delivering is 5 different scenarios. There's still 5 things on the menu, and you have to still decide. Okay? And the other thing about the scenarios, which is actually, well, the really sophisticated planners now don't do one project, they do 5 or 6. We originally had an idea about what the 5 scenarios were. And they were like this. The first one was, what happens if we do nothing? Nothing. I want to say that's one of the most important scenarios because very often in America now, projects don't happen. They tend to not happen. We are a deal killer of a society. Okay, I don't know whether it's the NIMBYism or what's going on, but there's a very good likelihood that projects don't happen. They all sit. By the way, we have probably more projects successfully built than any other firm, and it's not even 30%. And we are just cleaning up. We're considered really, really good, realistic implementers, and it's 30%. So bear in mind, those of you, okay, that you have to bring this to life. Okay, your job is to bring it to life, not to figure out what doesn't work. Because this will tend to die of its own. In fact, it will die of simply disattention. You don't have to come out and kill it. All you have to do is get a next city council that gets distracted by something else, and suddenly I come back in 10 years and it hasn't happened, and that is to be expected. So I urge you, those who believe in it, you have to every day bring it to life. That's really your job from now on. Okay? The second thing, so the first project is what happens if nothing happens? And this is just saying nothing happens. Our first plan, called Scenario 1, says if you do nothing, the referendum fails, how much does it cost you? It actually doesn't cost very much. The good news is that if you kill it or allow it to die, there's about $60,000 in charges for the chain link fence. By the way, good looking first rate chain link fence. And then the policing is about, to have the cop from 6 times a day is only $42,000. And the maintenance is $74,000. For the very bargain price of $150,000 a year, you can have something that doesn't cause you any trouble. And I don't think anybody's in the spirit, but be aware that if you kill it, okay, there's almost no downside. It isn't the end of the world, and what will happen is actually the next generation, hopefully, will bring it to life. That's number 1. Okay, number 2. One of the peculiar things about this site is that your city charter requires that it come up for referendum. A referendum, which is supposed to be democratic, is actually a mechanism for dumbing down all the issues, okay, to the maximum. I have today an hour and a half, I have 15, 20, 30 drawings. The referendum requires 60 words. So the whole thing has to be reduced into a bumper sticker. Okay, and ill-tempered people can just pick up on it. I've done it many times. The referendum is a horrible, actually, method of getting this done because of the 60 words without drawings. There are people that are going to come in and say, what the hell, it's always safer to say no. So be careful of it. Now, here's the thing about the referendum. There's a very specific set of uses that can occur in this site. without referendum. Okay, so if you turn it down, be aware, and I'm going to show you this, that actually it doesn't have to go to nothing. It actually goes to a plan that is less complete, less rich. But do you know exactly what you eliminate? You eliminate anything that creates income. What goes is, you'll see that Plan 3 is very careful about income. This thing makes enough money to carry itself. This thing would make enough so that the land leases and charges will actually cover the expenses. If you turn down by referendum, this happens, but it doesn't pay for itself. Because all you're allowed to put in here is actually entertainment, culture and entertainment, the stuff that costs money but does not generate. So what you eliminate, let's be absolutely clear, what you eliminate is the ability for this to carry itself. Which, by the way, all the grown-ups all week have said, who's paying for this? Who's paying for this? Who's paying for this? The most impressive, and me, I'll say, who pays for this? I've been bringing this up all the time. And the third plan, scenario 3, actually pays for it. But you have to actually vote it in by referendum. That's all you're getting, is actually a plan that pays for itself. The fourth plan is one that is probably the most negative, because there's positive people. We love the power plant. We love this. We love that. There's the lovers and then the haters. And there are people that really hate what the power plant looks like. Okay, they really hate it, and they really hate what the domes on the southern side look like. They just hate what they look like, and they have standing too. There are enough of people who do that. That there's a fourth plan that actually demolishes everything. The power plant is gone. All the good parts of the water services are gone. They're gone. By the way, good news is it doesn't cost you anything, because they have salvage value. So actually, I can't even say the demolition costs $3 million. The demolition costs nothing. It just comes back and it's clean. But the problem is you just have more land. And you have more land where you don't want it, which is in the back of the site that's not even on the waterfront. So when, if you actually do that, you have big chunks of land on the highway, and the only thing it's good for is shopping centers. Because the good stuff, if you do have any good stuff, is wants to be up on the waterfront. So what you've done is completely wiped out, you've erased that which already existed and had value, which is essentially the power plant, which is there, and enough people love it that they can do something with it. So be careful with the plan that demolishes everything. Now the fifth plan is what I call the plan of the City Council. And the City Council ultimately, after all is said and done, and they listen and they listen and they listen and they listen, the City Council has to decide which elements of which plan they want. What is it that you want? There's no dodging it. Okay, you have to, and then I have to get your orders. And this is the true menu. The waiter comes up from Miami again and says, okay, have you finally decided what you want? Do you want this part and that part and that part? And then we'll put it together, and that's what goes up for referendum. So the fifth scenario is empty until the City Council decides. And there can be advisors, and there can be anything. And of course, you need to consult with your economic people and your planner and everything. But ultimately, the City Council has to decide what you order up. And that's the fifth scenario. Okay? And so right now it's void. And I want you to understand very clearly what's up. This is as sophisticated as planning gets. And it will work really well so long as you understand what the pros and cons of everything. Okay, and we spent a lot of effort doing this to actually clarify. And by the way, the report is going to be one of the shortest and most succinct that you will ever get. It argues all the pros and cons. And please, please, before you come and take up public time, please read it. Okay, one of the most disturbing things that's happened all week is when somebody shows up and says, well, what about this? And I said, well, actually, we spoke about that already. You weren't here. And that's very, very wasteful of the people who've actually taken this seriously. So don't show up late without reading properly the report. And actually, I would say that the city council should be perfectly fair to say, sir, madam, we understand that that's a good question. It's in the report. Please read the report and come back to us. If you answer every question and you run a continual kindergarten, oh, it's the same question over and over again, the really, really engaged people will stop coming to the meetings. They can't stand it because it's the same every time. So once the report comes out, just say, please read the report, because that's where it's at. Really don't waste our time, because it exists and you're all literate. Okay, so now let's start. Next. Okay, this merely says that the site is the most important, very clearly. There's a downtown. The downtown is taking off. Okay, it's on the runway and it's taking off. I was surprised that there wasn't more opposition from the downtown, because we're putting interesting things here that theoretically are competitive with the downtown. Places to eat, places to gather, exactly what the downtown does. And normally, the merchants of the downtown actually form out in opposition. I was very surprised when one of the principal landlords and merchants said, no, it's actually, don't worry about us, do your best. Okay, which I thought was incredibly noble. Do your best, don't hobble this plan for the sake of downtown. And then some merchants from downtown came up and said, you know what we've already learned? The more good restaurants we have downtown, the more every restaurant does well. So we understand this perfectly, what you're doing. So unexpectedly, there's no opposition from downtown. But I would tell you professionally that this does have an advantage. And it is that this will be centrally managed. Okay, the restaurants will be coordinated with each other, and that's a very superior competitive position. And one of the things downtown deserves is actually that some of the $21 million that actually have been accrued from the sale of the power plant, that some of those 21 be allocated to the downtown, and it will not all come here. And actually that both, in fact, set off, and they both, in fact, get help at the same time. We cannot have a competitive situation, because actually one day you'll want to do a Main Street experience and one day you will want to do a waterfront experience, and Vero needs both. So carry both together, keep thinking of them together. So those are the two. Unfortunately, they're not related physically. Boy, it'd be great if they were next door, but they aren't. Next. Okay, now there was also some call, really important issue. When you all came in and you all participated and you all had your say, there was some question as to whether you were actually citizens of Vero or not. Like, are we having a bunch of county people telling us what to do? The reason that's important is that the county is 10 times the size in population to Vero. 10. 7 to 10, depends on how you count. Okay? So overwhelmingly, it will be used by county people. Overwhelmingly. No question. Because they're simply 10 times as much, and yet the county isn't paying 1 red cent for these facilities. Right now, it's entirely on the back of the citizens of Vero. This is profoundly unfair. Okay, and it causes problems. You build in problems. If you've ever seen the waterfront of Greenwich, Connecticut, it's exactly the problem. Eventually, the citizens of Vero get tired. You know, hey, who's maintaining this, and why is there other people using it? And so if you don't actually establish a relationship with the county, you're building in a toxic situation that will come back 5, 10, 15 years from now, and you build it in. You build it in, and they'll start gating it, and they'll start charging people from the county, and you will create an enmity between the county and the city. So it's very important between now and the vote that the elected officials and the municipal officials of both sides get together and say, this is very obvious that everybody will use it, let's allocate the cost. And by the way, it's not the citizens, because actually the outline of the City of Vero is extremely irregular. Most people don't know whether they're citizens of Vero or not. They really don't, so you can't even ask them. Are you a citizen? I don't know. It's the same thing. So it's not the fault of the people. It really has to be, and I brought this up in a meeting with the county Chamber of Commerce, and I urge them, get together and solve this. This isn't going to come up until later. Okay, this is 15 years from now, city and county will be like this. And this is already known that this happens. The entire coast of the United States, and by the way, our new town called Seaside, you know, beautiful Seaside, with its residents who pay for everything, it's the beach of the entire of Alabama. Okay, everybody's angry at each other over the parking. And about, why can't I get a restaurant reservation? Because somebody from Birmingham is here, excuse me. No. So please take care of this. Okay, and this is what this map shows. Next. This is the participation, and it goes up and down, huge numbers, almost 11 times. But this is way more than vote. So as far as democracy is concerned, don't worry about it. This is hyper-democratic. It's not necessary to keep stirring the pot and get more people. In fact, what I recommend is that this actually, that the website now become a presentation of this plan, and that what is asked, anybody who needs a clarification, to say, if you need a clarification, we'll answer, but we've had enough ideas. And by the way, most of the ideas I've heard 3 times. I very much doubt there are going to be any new ideas. So stop talking about more ideas. Okay? The thing is done, the ideas are incorporated, what you need are clarifications. So the website, within 1 week, by the way, you got a week to think. We did this whole thing in 1 week. So you think about it. If you need any more ideas, bring them in, but after that, it's only clarifications. Okay, so you become smarter and smarter. By the way, there's no mechanism to keep changing these plans. It's contract over. So don't promise, you know, that this is going to keep happening at the rate that it's been happening, and you have more than enough say. The other thing is, here are the numbers, they're astronomical. Okay, you've done a good job, congratulations, and you've absorbed everything. In fact, one of the things I'm not going to show tonight is that we arrived Sunday night, we started working Monday morning, we had a full plan the first night, which we presented. By the end of the second night, you had a new plan responding, and then what you're seeing today is the third plan, just finished. So we have been absorbing the ideas, I mean, really, really well. I mean, astonishingly well. And I want to explain why. It's not that we're talented, although we happen to be. It's that the site is so big that we were able to absorb the ideas. You know, when somebody said, give me this, give me that, give me the third thing, they fit. It wasn't a problem of fitting. Normally, most projects, which are smaller, are this or that, this or that, this or that. This isn't like that, it all fit. Now, some of the things that appeared in the second plan disappeared by the third plan. I'll give you a reason. For example, the expansion of the marina and dry dock storage, which people ask for, in fact, very aggressively. This is about the boaters, give us that. And we put it in the plan. You'll see that it's been taken out now because it's happening in Riverside Park. So there's been subsequent information that said, okay, we tried it and there was no need for it, we moved it out. So we're not erasing things, it's just that we're finding out things that are necessary, okay? And so that's what you'll be seeing. Next. And there's all these people who participate live, flesh and blood, the power plant visitors, etc. It's all about quantity, but at some point, quantity's done. Okay, what we want is clarity and intelligence now. Next. These are the meetings, minimum of 3 a day, but believe me, it wasn't 3 a day. There was always somebody present. It's only today that we managed to kick people out, so that so we could get some work done. But there was always somebody there, And so, as far as I know, we've had 14 meetings that felt like meetings. This is in addition to kind of people wandering in, which we always treated, I think, with respect and listened to them. But this is, I think, the 14th meeting. Next. The site was originally cut up into slices from east to west in order to prove something, that actually it's not a waterfront site. It's only the first 300 feet that is a waterfront site. Okay? It's the only time you get any notion of water is in the first 300. And what happens in the first 300, by the second 300 and the third 300, it's a normal site. And then, and this is the peculiar thing, actually the site belongs to Indian River Boulevard. It does not belong to the waterfront. So our first one was sliced this way. 1, 2, 3, 4 slices. What you'll see now is that the slices work differently. And that's because we realized that there's this monster here, which is the bridge, and that the bridge makes noise. And that some things have to be near the bridge, can be near the bridge, and some things have to be far away. So then it's now more like a tartan grid. There's front to back, but also center to out. And that's exclusively because of the noise. I take the opportunity here to actually speak about the neighbors. Normally, the immediate neighbors dominate, and they're the biggest trouble. And we originally had a plan called the Neighbors Plan. And we had a meeting down here with neighbors from both sides, and we explained, and we actually took care of their issues, which were 3: traffic, noise from outdoor events, and lighting. So it was the same, the 3. And we were able to deal with all 3, and I'm going to tell you what the answers were. The first one was about traffic. My simple answer was, the traffic is bad, and the traffic's going to get worse regardless of what we do, because that is the history of traffic. The first car made traffic bad, the second crowd made it worse. One of the extraordinary things is no matter how many highways and bypasses and widenings in America, we started tracking traffic volume in 1940. And Robert Moses in New York, Robert Moses, this enormous number of highways and everything, it never stopped. Traffic always gets worse. So what I told the neighbors, I said, yes, sirs and madame, traffic will get worse. Let's get that on the table and not have it swallow the discussion. And it's not our fault. This is an open system from Maine to Key West, and it is the growth of the county that is causing the traffic, not us. Not only that, but it's not about traffic, it's about peak traffic. That's when it gets dense. The bulk of the activities here take place well off peak traffic. Okay, it takes place in leisure time when people aren't working or commuting, so you won't feel it. But even if you did, you should still know that this is a very minor speck on your present and future problems. Traffic will get worse, and that's not our fault, your fault, anybody's fault. It's the way we build America, okay? The second thing is light. If you look at our communities like Windsor or Seaside, etc., from the beginning, 1980, we have very low light levels because humans look better in light. Humans look horrible. Look at me in these lights. I actually have a terrific skin color. It's not going to happen with those lights. So what we did is, rather than actually deal with skin color, we're just going to go from shoulder down. And from Seaside and Windsor, if you've seen Windsor or Alice Beach, we're very careful to keep lighting low. It's where it's best. And you only need it at the bottom anyway, which is where you're stepping. The third thing is the old problem of the outdoor auditorium. You know, the speakers, like for my generation, half of us are deaf because we always had the front row of the concerts. And the speakers have to reach the last person. And so what happened is, you know, it's extremely loud. There's a new technology you can see in Chicago's park. What's it called? Millennium Park. And what it is a grid of wires, you know, pretty tight grid, onto which are hung small speakers, you know, which electronically you communicate with, and they actually have a cone of sound, which is loud to the person underneath, but it doesn't go anywhere. So essentially what we have now is silent auditoriums. Obviously, that's what we would do here, because we've heard you, and the technology is here now to do that. By the way, the one in Chicago was designed by Frank Gehry. You may know that it's a kind of pipe grid. It's much thicker and 50 times, if not 500 times more expensive. We're just thinking of little wires. What they have there is a whole Frank Gehry grid. So it's very big. But we're thinking of something that's virtually invisible. Okay, really cheap to do. The hurricane can wipe it out. Don't worry, you buy some more. So there is what we call the power plant site. There's what we call the waste treatment site, and there is this site, which we call the post office site, which used to be a post office, and just a little bit about each. The post office was actually half knocked down by a hurricane, and it's where FP&L put its transmittal facilities from here to here. So 2/3 of the back is gone, 1/3 is available. Over here we have the power plant and the site that has been cleansed. This is not being delivered to you as a brownfield site. It's clean, both inside and outside the buildings. And this will be demolished in 5 years, the water plant, as it moves out, and it'll come back clean. So there's no burden of cleaning, which is normally what you inherit when these are gone. So you start with a very clean slate. There are a couple of things here. There's a harbor here, which is where the oil was delivered, and it's a wonderful facility. And then there is another here, which is where the water was sent out, and this has been beautifully replanted by mangroves. It's taken back. And this is actually a very romantic kind of almost, mangrove tunnel almost. So this is obviously a wonderful place for a park because it's the only piece of nature that's left. Everything is denatured. Nature is killed, compacted, gone, except here. So this is the naturalistic part, and of course the harbor, which also has the dredge, is the place for the bigger boats. I think there's a canal to the top, which actually belongs to the city, and is available for, what's the term? Somebody run? It's available for recreation or? Public use, excuse me. This right-of-way, this is a city right-of-way, like a street. It's like a street, that canal's like a street, available for public use, and this actually belongs to some other government entity. So we have an idea for this and for the others. At some point, I'm gonna get this one over with. This is too far to cross. It's a horrible intersection to cross. It's not going to be used. And so the idea that we put parking there, even a parking garage, is a waste of time. This should be sold for commercial purposes, and I'll get into that, and the money for it just allocated to supplement the development of the rest. This is a perfectly conventional site. Next. That should go. Now the power plant is two things. It is both, almost everybody thinks it's a monster. Very negative aspects to it, and it has to do with the memory, lots of bad memories, but there are a couple of things about it. It is ugly on the outside. They didn't care. What I want to show you how it's gorgeous on the inside, and the outside can be changed. The other thing which is unusual, think about it, there are very, very few chimneys that are actually that thin. At first I found it stunning, because you see they're fat and so forth, and these are almost like masts, and I think they actually can perform a function that bears no memory to the fact that they were smokestacks, because they're so thin. And so we do have a proposal to use them for other purposes. This is, by the way, the cleaned land. Next. And from different points of view, you develop an attitude towards the chimneys. It's really interesting how many of the boaters we hear use them for lighting, for orientation, even from the ocean, not only from the lagoon, but even from the road. And I've been coming to Vero since we designed Windsor, like 20 or 25 years ago, and I never quite know where I am until I see the power plant, because it's very, very. I know it's very insulting, but most of the architecture is of weak character. It's perfectly forgettable. However beloved, it's perfectly forgettable. All the shopping centers and 50s buildings. And then you see the power plant and I've arrived. So this is of some consequence. It's not nothing. And if we can actually turn it into something really positive, it really is something that Vero needs. It also happens to be the tallest building that Vero will ever have, because your height limit never is not over 35 feet, never will change, and this is 60 feet. So you will see that it's actually the best rooftop terrace that you will ever have, and the view is magnificent. So it is of importance. Next. And this is the beautiful internal hallway, which actually was done when engineers still had an aesthetic eye. And they spent some effort, curving it and so forth. And I know that this can become extraordinary. It's a beautiful thing. It also happens to be the length of St. Patrick's Cathedral nave and the National Cathedral in Washington if you're not Catholic. Okay, so, it's a multi-denominational cathedral space, which is really valuable. It can become fantastic things. These machines here that interfere, these particular set, can be pulled out at no cost. And then you have actually a flat floor, something we discovered. The other thing, even from the middle floor, and this is the back side, the view is magnificent and unique. And actually it's interesting, it's a public view. I'm sure there are condos and people that have that view, but this is a public view. And most people in Vero never get high to see the water or to see anything, so it's really an asset. Next. And then there's this thing. This thing is, this is the big hall, and there's a very, very big area that is absolutely dense with incredible machinery. Just dense. And there's been a call for public art. The usual, public art, public art. And the public art of this place should be not just a separate sculpture that could be anywhere, but actually giving artists a shot at this. Okay, it doesn't have to be one artist. You can actually give 3 bays to one artist. What would you do with it? What would you paint it? What would you do with it? How would you light it? And this could be an extraordinary, just magical, incredible place. Huge art piece, in depth, you know, and that should be where your budget goes. Also, by the way, the underside of the highway, of the bridge, is actually pretty nice and clean. It's not your usual rusty northeastern, metal falling apart bridge. It's a really beautiful bridge, and the artists could be actually let loose on that. And also they could be let loose in the 2 tanks, which I'll talk about later. There are potential canvases for artists all over the site, you know, and of course the allocation, the percentage for art should be, I think, to make this an extraordinary building at actually relatively little cost. Next. And then there is this, something which for me is one of the most nostalgic things I've ever seen, which is America in 1961. The space program. We still believe in the future. We still believe in power. We still believe in electricity. We believe in all of these things that now are astonishing to the young people. Like, are you kidding me? But look at these people. I mean, this is like these dials. You've got to go in here. And that's the power plant. That's the console. You know, it's totally retro. It's amazing, and it can make the best martini bar on the East Coast. You can, you know, I mean, you know, because there are, yeah, you can get a decorator, but nothing like this. You can't buy this. By the way, if you get rid of it, somebody's going to get a martini bar with it, probably in New York. It's just going to go straight to Chelsea, and you're going to be sorry, because it couldn't be better. Next. And then there's the tanks on the other side, which are actually not only huge and actually have a dome on top. You know, these aren't your gas tanks that are flat. They have a dome on top. And one of the people who actually grew up with them, they're actually people that actually spent all their lives in these facilities, told me very proudly, this was done by the best concrete contractor in the United States, and this by the second best concrete contractor in the United States. And they're impeccable. And what was in them was actually clean water, you know, and they're just huge spaces. I mean, we're talking about spaces the size of this church, except round. And you could put an Oculus on top, and you're almost at the Parthenon. Okay, if you wanted to. I think it would be a shame to knock them down. Although back here, I tried to fall in love with the rest, which is to the west. Impossible. It's just a mess from beginning to end. That's got to go. So it's not that I want to save everything. It's just that these are beautiful pieces and these are not. So our plans, many of our plans, not all of them. As I said, there's a full demolition plan. So those who want them demolished will get their choice. There is, I think it's scenario 3. Next. An aspect to give you some respect, is this, St. Augustine, this site is the same size as historic St. Augustine from the central square, you know, where the bridge comes in, all the way to the fort, including Flagler College. And this is what made our life so easy. Everything fit. So when the orders came in, it was just a matter of allocating them. But even the dry storage boat house fit. Everything fits. And so that was easy. The skill was actually making them fit together. That was the skill. So it was a pleasure to work on this. Next. And then there are other places. What is this? This is Humiston Park. By the way, Humiston Park occupies, this is Humiston Park. If you put it there, it occupies just this much. Okay, just that much. And Humiston Park is almost perfect size. It's not too big, it's not too small. You can see the buildings, there's plenty to do. It's a great sized park. And if you say, well, I want a park like that, which I would recommend, Okay, I said, you're done. Okay, we still have 9/10. What other idea do you have? And that's in the constant theme. Come on, ideas. We don't have enough. In fact, during most of the charrette, you will know that there was 1/3 of the site that I actually would label for subsequent development by a later generation. Because simply there wasn't enough ideas. And then finally somebody said, hey, settle down and fill it, because if you don't, you know, it's what people will feel that you're hiding something. You need more park space. And I kept saying, but you have Riverside Park. And they say, we need more park space, Riverside Park. What happened in Riverside Park, and it's full of beloved things. You have the great museum I can't hear enough about, you have the great theater, you have the great boat, you have the great this, you have the great firehouse. But it is such an incoherent hodgepodge that when I visited, I was actually astounded, actually horrified, how much of it had been cut up by totally incoherent planning. And that's the impression it gives. You say, are you kidding? Where's the park? It's this parking lot, and that parking lot, this building over here, this building over here. What the hell is a firehouse doing here? Like, there's all this stuff. It is actually an extreme example of bad planning. However good your facilities are, and one of the things we want to do here is from the beginning have a plan so you don't actually just cut it up and waste it. What happened to Humiston? And now I understand why people say we need more park. That one is just too chopped up. You know, the waterfront, except for very small increments, has been done away. So I would hold that up as a bad example. And it's because, and it's because I had to understand, because on the map it looks so large. I said, what are you complaining about? Well, have a good look at it, what it looks like from the outside. It's just shot through with parking lots with little slivers of green, you know, in between, but that ain't gonna do it. That's not a park. So now I understand why they ask for more. By the way, there's some 20-something more parks that you have in the city. The problem is that they're not, the problem is not the park, it's the edge. In America, public spaces are used insofar as the edge of the park, the buildings and things at the edge of the park, feed them energy and activity. Okay, so you can have an open space, beautiful as can be, but if there isn't a place for food and drink, no one's there. And just the truism is Americans don't hang around very long anywhere that there isn't food and drink. In fact, this is one of the few instances where you will. Because when you go to the movies, you know, it's popcorn and soda. So I'm honored that you've been brushed off. So they're good and bad examples. I mean, I praise where praise is earned, but when there isn't, one has to learn. Next. What is this? Oh, these are ideas. I believe these are one of the many ideas that people have given to us. By the way, very high skill, very low skill, but there's something. Even when the drawing skill was bad, sometimes the idea was good, and we can tell the difference. So some very good ideas have come in, even though they weren't all very well drawn. Next. This is a good idea. This is what gave us the central idea. One of your residents, I think you know who he is, I called him up and I said to him, use your idea. What he did is he said, from the road to the waterfront, what we need are very simple single-story sheds of the Florida kind, you see, from the road to here, with a pedestrian walkway inside, with overhangs on both sides, and then what happens inside, we can change over time. Farmer's market, you know, whatever. Farmer's market, just a preparation kitchen, you know, incubator for food trucks, restaurants, you know, this dance at the community building has lots of dances, you know, where we were working, and actually sometimes the day's beautiful outside and they're all inside. Why not sometimes, if you know it's a beautiful day, do it out there? You see what I'm saying? Like this, it's just multifunctional space. We don't decide, but it's there. Once we put this into our plan, everybody who came in with an idea, including a wonderful idea for a cat cafe, where you can actually meet orphan cats and have a date with them. And actually, if you get along, it's like a dating service with cats. If you like it, you can take it home. So the woman came in with this idea, and we said, sure, here, you can have a dating service for cats too. That's not a problem. So what made our charrette so easy is that we had these long buildings that could be anything. And you know, in architecture school, it's called equipotential space. its built potential. It has electricity, it's got grease traps, it's got certified kitchens, it's got the handicap bathrooms, it's ready to go. The important thing is not to give them to people that are mediocre for very long. Lots of people will come in and say, I just make the best cookies in the world, and maybe you decide, well, no one's buying that cookie, and then you have to pull them. So the city has to manage this in a very tough way. You have 6 months to prove yourself, and if you don't, you have no permanent right to this. And that's how these places now work in New Orleans and various other places. You give everybody a chance very easily, but it's not forever. And by the way, if you do succeed, you decant to a proper building, right? A full building, and then you give somebody else a chance. So it's a continual churning of talent. I think it'll bring a lot of people, young people to Vero, actually with talent and ideas, because it's easy. The hurdle of getting a permit is too high. It's hard to get a permit here, and this lowers the hurdle so that you can actually make a permit. So this idea is fantastic. Next. And then we drew it, go back one. Now you know that we designed Seaside, and we actually introduced the Florida cracker style. Seems hard to believe that people didn't do that. Before that, it was what's called the Sea Ranch style, and everything was one-sided roofs and actually weathered wood, otherwise known as the hippie style. And you didn't sand anything, and everything gave you splinters. And that was when I arrived in Florida, that was it. And I was looking, I found the Florida cracker style so exotic that I didn't realize it was associated with poverty, which at the time it was. It's like, oh, yeah, the rural, leftovers. And we brought it in the Seaside, we instituted it. It's been an incredible hit and it revived, including the tin roof. And so I was very comfortable when I saw this, and I began showing it to young people, and they said, we don't want more of that. We're tired of clapboard, we're tired of pink, we're tired of those roofs, we're just tired of it. And I had this aha moment, yeah, me too. I too am tired of it. And then they brought this next. This is more metallic. It's slightly grungier and actually much more compatible with the site. This is not a romantic site in the country, right? It's got a highway next to it. It's got a power plant. And so they wanted this. This is in Granville Island in Vancouver, which is one of the coolest places on earth. And it's actually the whole island where industrial facilities repurposed. And this is the same shape building, but it's made out of metal and other things, and you can hang things on it and off things, and it's a different, and this is what they brought us. The young people said, we've had it with the cracker, thank you very much. And it's true. It was hot and exciting when I was 30, and that's been a long time. It's 40 years ago that I was 30. So it's time to see what they think. And so this is what you should imagine when you see our drawings. Metal and glass, and stuff that's not quite finished. And by the way, rust is the paint color preferred. Next. So this is the first plan, and what we did is we put the parking, this should always go next to the street. The best use for this side, for this street, is parking. Don't bring the parking into the site because it pollutes the whole site. So on Indian River Boulevard is the parking, and then here we had the power plant, which was converted into I'll show you later, into the big hallway as a conference center, and just a skin of hotel rooms facing the other way. And then we have the garden, which was an environmentally sensitive garden, which was restored to show the grasses and local grasses and things. And then we had different restaurants at different price points here, from the ones that the kids can afford and like, and then the ones that every day, and then the tablecloth. Let me just talk a little bit about that. Restaurants attract and repel people. If you want to have the diversity of people, they have to afford food. Okay? So that some people have five members of the family, they have kids, they can't do lunch at $10 because it's $60. So they need a $4 sandwich. Right? And then there's something that's called a $7 sandwich, which is exactly what you'll get in your private clubs on the island. You say, what's the middle range? The club food. And then there's a white tablecloth, food that you need every once in a while when you feel like you deserve it. And so what the city needs to do is actually put 3 restaurants of 3 price points in there. By the way, this is done by Disney, for example. That's how they get so many people to love Disney World. Everything's controlled price points. While in Florida, you can go to a place such as the island where every restaurant's expensive. And then you go to another place up or down the coast in which every restaurant is cheap fried food. And there is no choice because they converge. And so this, one of the management aspects of this, because a lot of it isn't just physical design, it's management. One of the things that happens here is to hold 3 restaurants at different price points. And the sailing club, the Youth Sailing Foundation, which actually has a lot of rights to be here because they're already there. We said, if you take, they said, we want to run our own food place, and so the kids don't leave. When the kids get hungry at noon, they want to have the grilled cheese sandwich there. So they were going to run a restaurant, so we said, go ahead and run it. And then the other 2 would be, you would have to find vendors to come take them over. By the way, I wouldn't sell this, because the income, here's something I will forget to say in this essay now. Because the county takes about 75 or 80% of your taxes, the tax rateables here don't come to the county, they're negligible. The only income you will have is by land leases. So you lease the land to the restaurants, and they don't come in as taxes, they come in as straight income. So once we realized that, we began putting places in that actually provided this income. For example, a wedding chapel, which appeared later. The wedding chapel pays, a normal wedding is $4,000 4 times a weekend. And that can actually pay for the maintenance and a lot of the stuff. So I'm very aware that actually what we put here should actually have an ongoing income stream, or this ain't gonna happen. And so we just need to be allowed to do it. There is some suspicion about charging for anything. Sometimes I feel I'm in East Germany, like don't let any developers in. They might be making a profit. And yet we don't want to pay any money. We don't want to pay taxes, we hate taxes, and we don't want anybody making any money. Well, that doesn't work. So we have to grow up and say there has to be some income producing properties here, either leased or sold, and so the income comes in so you don't have to raise your taxes. So that's what happens over here, and then over on the other side, we had an idea of converting the 2 tanks into a town hall, because I hate your town hall. Okay, I've had some of the worst hours of my life being insulted in your town hall. In a terrible little corner, where you don't fit, and you have to squeeze in by the cop, and half the people are pissed off in the lobby, and then you have a kind of completely overbearing council that doesn't even look at you when you speak because they're looking at their screens. They're like insulting students that are looking at their phones. And you say, how can you have a city hall like this? So one of the things we're going to propose, although we haven't proposed it, is to actually save a site here for a future city hall chamber. You don't have to hold the whole bureaucracy there, but you could have, a more elevating, up-to-date place to meet. I think it would make your decisions easier. Everybody is in such a lousy mood. And a number of people that have said, I'm not going to that place. Friends of mine that says, yeah, no, I know it's important, but I'm not going. And of course, it's really, you forget, but it really is a humiliating experience. That lobby, everything about it doesn't work. By the way, the bureaucratic offices aren't that bad on top. It's curious. It's just a meeting chamber. So I would say, our first idea is to get one of these water tanks and say, could we please have a chamber here? That's also good for other uses, not just for the city council. Look at this TV screen compared to what you have at City Hall. How can you make a presentation unless you have, something of this quality? So anyway, that was our first idea, and then we mothballed this for later. And always we had, parking here or there. But in this case, we have that walkway. We took that drawing by your fellow citizen, and we cut it up into smaller pieces, which actually was easier to build and more friendly. And we put it right here. So you entered, you got off, you entered the hotel, and then you went all the way to the youth boating club, and then you had the restaurants and the kind of harbor here. This is the first night. And then we had a park here. I'm telling you this because to show you how we listen, okay? We had a park here that both had Florida environmental look to it, you know, of the dunes that were basically erased by the grapefruit plantations. If you look at the golf course in Windsor, okay, which is a very unique golf course, what they did is it used to be a grapefruit plantation, and they restored the dunes, okay, which from photographs. And then once the dunes were done with their wetlands and their ups and downs and the trees that were bent, then they put a golf course in it. And it's totally different from most golf courses because it looks really authentic. It looks like a Scottish links golf course that was built into nature. And that's what we're talking about here. We wanted to have a piece of nature, and then we wanted to have which goes up in that way. Still, we wanted a walkway that was flat for people who had, a difficulty walking, and jogging and so forth. And then we also had the water, actually to cleanse the stormwater that came. And then we had the skate park that so many people want. And then we had the outside auditorium that everybody wants also. And which we don't like because it looks terrible when it's empty, but it was just a sloped hillside. We can pull out a blanket and do it. And we said, and boy, everybody's gonna be together at the same time. And somebody said, excuse me, but do you think that the skaters get along with the music? Okay, do you think that the grasses, which are delicate, the native grasses, get along with the kids playing? They'll crush them in 2 seconds. And basically what they said, no, I'm sorry, this does not. And they kept saying, where's the park? And I said, well, here's the park. He said, there's not a park. What they wanted is where you can actually have lawn and play ball. Okay, that's what they want. It took me a long time to understand. You have a park. No, that's an open space. And we had this idea that it's better to put everything together, but I understand perfectly it doesn't work. Okay, if you have, certain music is going to horrify the kids, and the music that the kids have are going to just chase away the adults, and that's the way it always has been. Okay, so we need the next scheme, which I think will come up next. The next scheme is different. And also, somebody said, this is priceless, and I thank the person who did. Could you go back? Remember that our cool little sheds were here next to the highway. And somebody said, that's the noisiest part, what are you thinking? And I went, aha, yeah, it's crazy, because that's where it's noisiest. So the next scheme we did the second day, you entered from the other side, right? The parking's still in the same place. This is still the conference center, which is the power plant, and we have a beautiful entry of palm trees, like in Palm Beach, and actually you can see the sea clear out. And then we put the walkway with the small buildings through here, and actually the restaurants here. And so what you get is number 1, number 2, and number 3 space. The number 1 space, giving to the pool deck of the hotel, is the environmental one. So people in the hotel know they're in Florida. They find it incredibly exotic and beautiful. And then we put the skating park on the second one. By the way, the skating park is always next to the sailing club, because they're already taking care of teenagers, right? So it's just a matter of landlubber teenagers instead of seafaring teenagers with the same issue, okay? And they're both audacious. And by the way, don't underestimate skate park. It's an Olympic sport. Okay, so that's going to have rights. Where's our sport? And they're great to look at. And so, and here we put actually the grassy field with the oaks. So the kids are here, the Florida fans are here, and over here is the outside amphitheater, which is associated with the restaurant. So you can actually be on the deck of the restaurant, which you couldn't before, and appreciate it. And also the boats that came in on this dock, you could also stay on their stern and actually listen to the music. So that was the second one, and that was actually listening to things. Over here, we realized that actually these 2 tanks, which are connected by a lobby, that actually the arts organizations really wanted them. That they were looking for display places and black box theaters and all sorts of stuff that could be inside the tank and the outside, because you can project digital art on the outside. So this is pure equipotential space for the artists. Don't worry about it. Air conditioning permit, they'll take care of it. And on the outside here, we expanded the mangroves and that's where the Florida landscape should be restored, because it's already happening. It isn't this completely artificial thing that we had before, which is like, it's like Disney World, with the pumps you know, all this stuff that underlies nature when you create it. This is actually happening. So next. And then, okay, so this is the last one, and we have a beautiful drawing of it. In this one, we enter here, we go straight to a square. The chapel is where it was before. The restaurants are making, you know, they're still listening to the music here. The park is bigger. The venue is here. You know, the music venue actually will control that of the hotel. This is the docking. And then pretty much what we saw before, except here, there's glamping, which is, I'll show you the image. Glamping is glamorous camping. And it's actually tents that are incredibly cool. I'll show you pictures. And this is one more income for the city. Very easy to maintain, one more income. And that came actually as an idea from the young arts community. Said, hey, we just don't want art, we want artists. We want to take the advantage of being in Florida in the winter and call in the writers, the painters, all these people. We want housing for them. And so they could live there. So that's actually, and that's why living in the mangroves, not the mangroves, but living in the natural species, they could have an incredible Florida experience. And you'll see that later. Now this is now the arts piece, and we wanted to have a larger place for the music. And then something came up. Housing was the last of, you know, in the questionnaire we did, this, that, the other, many things. Housing was the dead last. And because I think people, I don't know what they assumed it would be, but at the same time, there was this elephant in the room in that people kept saying, we can't find housing. The young people can't find housing. We're living in terrible things. We're paying $1,500 a month for just, you know, completely loser places, etc. The school teachers can't find housing. There are 40 unfilled jobs in the hospital, on and on like that. The cops, where are they going to go? And so while the report said no housing, there's a reason we come here with flesh and blood, right? You know, it isn't just what the report said and no housing. The people came in and said housing. Okay, and I finally, yesterday in public, I asked, would somebody here that said, you know, the kids always ask for housing. I said, would an adult say in public that they want housing here? And you may remember last night that actually a very credible adult, looked anyway, that was actually asking he was saying, who's going to pay for this, etc. And I said, are you saying we should have housing? And he said, yes. And then I said, well, we happen to have a big site with nothing to do. And I want everybody to hear that I didn't come up with it, although I think it's absolutely the right thing, and that somebody asked for it. So today we actually created a place, basically a square like that has about, you know, we don't look for numbers of housing, we actually say what's the capacity of the site. So what happened is buildings like this, an L building, actually this is different. This is actually, I'm sorry, this L here was to capture a park where you listen to music, because between the two drums there's a stage, right, made out of a tent, and that's the stage for the music. So we made a very soft lawn where you can actually lay, and you know there are many places like this in America now, in which you just bring out a blanket and in the evening you listen to the concerts. This was actually the dry storage that was asked for, and we put it in. And I actually liked it because it blocked the noise. But you know what happened? I realized that it was just as ugly, if not more, than the power plant we want to get rid of. So this is visual pollution. But then actually most of you don't know, but there's a vast extension of a facility like this in Riverside Park. So, and then once I heard that, we pulled it out for the third plan. So this is the second plan that had that. So those of you who asked for that, we drew it. And then there was reason not to have it. Next. And here we have the assignment, okay? One of the things that you can do to a site like this is actually make the institutions that are in it responsible. For example, if we put a conference hotel here, we would ask that hotel, who has security anyway, to take care of the entire park. It's your job to take care of the park. Okay, it's your landscape, it's your security, it's your everything. And so that comes off the ledger of the city. And then we have the sailing club, and the sailing club can say, okay, you take care of the skate park. It's your insurance or whatever you're doing for the sailing. I'm sure they're both, pretty dicey for young people. So you take care of that, and then the arts group can actually take care of the glamping, of the tents. So not all of it is assigned to everything. There's still land which is not assigned, so you still need a city person, a dedicated city person to coordinate, but also take care of those pieces that are not. But basically about 50 to 60% of this, the maintenance, is actually assigned to one of the institutions that's there already, just to get the cost low. And there's a diagram that you will see that's very clear. It's actually geographic. This is your job to take care of this. Next. Okay, we became experts in skate parks, just so you know. Study them all over. The key is to have enough size, but also it's the designer. You've got to have a killer skate park designer. And the best right now is one in Atlanta. We kind of spotted who he was. He's like the Bobby Trent Jones of skating parks, and I think it would be incredible if you could have the best of the best here so yes, we'll recommend who we should do it. This is just a side study. Next. And then this is, we tried to see what the flattest skate park was, to see if we could actually put it underneath the highway. We can't. By the way, this is about the dullest skate park in the world, because we wanted to put it underneath near the trucks. The maintenance trucks have to be underneath to maintain the highway. And then we said, no, we need to pull it out and just let a designer just run free with it, whatever it is. By the way, they can be incredibly beautiful. They're just sculptural. Next. And then something about the chapel. We have, believe it or not, this is Scott Merrill, a local architect, the beautiful chapel at Seaside that actually received all the awards, all the national awards, and he's actually a Treehouse Prize winner, which is pretty much the Nobel Prize of Architecture. But it happens to be right here. And a spectacular architect. This is the wedding chapel at Seaside. This is the town hall, also wedding chapel at Alice Beach. And then there's also these open ones. I urge you to actually have these, the dream of the Southern bride, okay? As it was explained to me, it's not about you. This is the greatest day of their life, and it looks like this. It's this long, and it's this like this, and this is what you expect. But what's happened is that all of our towns now, we design new towns generally, we have a chapel. And it's used for services, but it's also used to raise money for everything else because of the wedding. The good thing about it is that you say, well, why don't you use the existing churches everywhere, right, that exist? Well, these actually are scheduled, and what they do is they create the shoulder season. When everybody is gone off, they keep the restaurants open and they keep the hotels full. And that's a terrible problem people have. It can kill things. So we manipulate the chapel to actually always be filling the restaurants. If they are flat chapels, you can always have seminars, like at Rosemary Beach. That's actually a wonderful meeting room as well. And they're used to keep everything rented all the time, year-round. Next. These are the gardens that are actually of native species, and I always like to point out that they're great and they're the right thing to do when they're doing the butterflies, but don't let any kid net near it because they trample it. And that's why we separated the beautiful gardens from the flat, grassy parks. Next. You'll see the difference. This is a flat, grassy park of the kind that you have here. Next. And this, by the way, this is the golf course in Windsor, which is absolutely amazing. It's what the landscape used to be like before the great trees flattened it. Next. And then there is the skill of designers everywhere. Rather than have a sculpture, which stand there. By the way, public art is a zero-sum game. As many people like it as hate it. All it causes is controversy. But actually, when they actually build something which is of use, many more people like it. And so that's our recommendation, is you have really great people doing landscaping and slopes and so forth. Next. By the way, I forgot to say, these photographs were sent to us by you. Okay, these are not ours, they're yours. Next. And then there's the industrial, well, the beautiful bridge, actually it is beautiful, and how we can put a fishing dock on the bumpers that it has to the north. There was a call for that. It's easy. Next. And then more public art, which is actually useful. Public art, great use. This is sent to us. This is the kind of stuff you guys posted. Next. And this is glamping. You see these tents? These tents, just this tent with a deck. You know, this is, okay, hold on to your chairs, $1,000 a night to live in a tent. And by the way, this is not to abuse people, this is to get income to run this outfit. Okay, so don't have a fit. We're just exploiting people who don't know better. And by the way, what I like about glamping, which is really good, this, actually, if it doesn't work, you pull it out. It's not a permanent structure that's just a blight. It's just a deck on stilts. And it's perfect for that peninsula, you know, where the park is in the canal. It'll be absolutely lovely. Next. And public art, including, this is digital graffiti in our new town called Alice Beach. And then projections on white walls. You know, light is amazing. Now this, I know light is disturbing. This would just be an art piece one night for 3 hours. And they're just huge, incredibly talented art pieces. It's a whole new kind of art that exists only within the computer. And then the white wall into which is projected. And it turns the light into magic. And by the way, if you don't like it, you can ditch it the next year. You haven't bought anything. You know, you return the projectors and it works perfectly. But don't say no until you try it. This is the kind of thing that could attract an enormous number of people. And it's a very modern form of art. Next. This is, by the way, this is that beautiful canal where the, believe it or not, where the kayaks are launched and where we intend to put the tents. It's already happening, we just need to supplement it. That's on the site. Next. This is Frank Gary's very expensive version of the little speakers that we're talking about. Okay? Don't hire Frank Gary to put a wire mesh on it because it will be tens of millions of dollars. But these are the speakers. There's just little bells, little tiny things that are right above you. And you hear it, no one else does. Next. And then a lot of people are worried that we don't have a use for that big hall in the power plant. And of course, the standard issue is we could actually have partitions and cut it into a conference center, not a big, you know, just rooms. This room, a room like this. You know, you can have rooms of this size, and there's a lot of call for that, both for balls and for charrettes. You know, we had to do it. We had to do it in a place that was actually very busy. Look at this church. I mean, you could have these places. But here's what happened. There's a gym, which is called Lifetime Athletic. It's actually the most extraordinary gym that actually uses spaces like that. They actually convert exactly rooms, power plants like that into absolute killer gyms. And probably you're not ready for a gym like that. But golf being a better bet. But there is program that actually, if you want somebody to take this off your hands, don't worry about it. Okay, there are people just that would actually understand it and do it in a sympathetic way. Next. And next door, we actually introduced housing. And the housing we introduced is just to make a square to create a place to listen to music, but also to have people on the site. A policeman came in, one of your police captains, and I said, how much would it cost? Guess where I got the number of $42,000 a year to police this site. Yeah, we did the calculations, how many hours, how many trips a day. I'm sorry, it wasn't there. 42 is $42 an hour is their cost. And you calculate by 365 and et cetera. That's where we got the $30,000 cost. But he said if we could get people to live there, it's safer. And you get the windows on the street. There's nothing less safe than a place where people don't live. In fact, there's something that impresses me very much. It's illegal to build a building in Finland, and probably the rest of Scandinavia, with at least one apartment. So the city hall has an apartment, the factory has an apartment, everything has an apartment. Because it's unsafe not to have a human there at night. What's happening? You think you're going to get a sensor that's going to figure out what's going on? No. And so really what that is an extreme example of this is trouble. This land, this huge, complex space at night is trouble. Okay, there's no way around it. It's not going to happen every night, but it's not going to feel safe. It just doesn't. Unless there are people living here. Plus there's a need, plus we have surplus land. So we said, this beloved building, right, which has maybe shops underneath, maybe just parking, and just nice apartments on top, why don't we use that, spread that around to make a square? A little like Jackson Square in New Orleans, but your version. And so when we introduced the housing, it was actually for that purpose. Next. So, what is this? Youth Sailing Foundation, they gave us floor plans, we placed them. Next. They're taking care of themselves. This is the site. Okay, these are our final drawings. Okay, so we're on to the final drawings. This is the site with the existing buildings on it. Okay? These three buildings get demolished. This is the power plant. By the way, look how big this site. You know that monster of a power plant? It's a tiny little thing on the site. It's that big. This is the harbor. These are the two good tanks. These are the bad tanks. These are the neighbors to the south. These are the neighbors to the north. This is the site that you sell. Okay? It's both complicated but not so complicated. And of course, everybody wants to be in the waterfront. By the way, this is the launching dock of the sailors. Next. And the first plan, the final plan is this. It looks like this is this is the next to final plan. The parking lot is here, of course. Beautiful access road with royal palms, just like in Palm Beach. The royal palms are a fantastic entrance. And then this is the row of little, multi-purpose spaces that ends in a square, that has the chapel, and then here, there are the three restaurants sort of notched back and forth to make outdoor space, including for such things as sand volleyball, activity that actually is supported by restaurants. The skating is in the back, and we have, you've seen it before. This is the one that this one still has a lot of parking here, unassigned space. We never could figure out what to do here, but basically you have this is the dry storage. Now, something came up about this site. Anything can go there, okay? It's worth $1 million to $2 million, and you can put an office building on it, you can put a shopping center on it, you can put parking on it, and you can put housing on it, and you can also put a Trader Joe's. And because Trader Joe's is a $15,000 footprint, and we kept getting this bothersome Trader Joe, really. There was this constant buzz of we need a market of Trader Joe. Coming from the island, by the way, the island people were extremely on demand. It's not like they came in and told us what they wanted, except the Trader Joe. So we said, okay, we finally get it. And so we footprinted on this little piece of land a perfect Trader Joe's, and there it is. So this is so desirable. Actually, I just give it to them. Don't even sell it. Just say, give us this, because a whole bunch of people are very anxious to come. And by the way, that doesn't have to wait for anything, because this is not part of the same constraint. This can actually be offloaded immediately to make everybody happy. So the Trader Joe crowd, you got it. And thanks for not asking for anything else. Next. So this is then there's another plan in which actually everything gets demolished. And here's, for me, the bad news. For those who hate those buildings, the good news: it doesn't cost anything to demolish. They will actually deliver clean, footings out, because the recovery value is such that it costs nothing. They'll just leave it for you clean. The problem then is I have even more land with nothing to put on it. And by the way, what it does is it takes land which is on the highway, which is actually perfectly interchangeable with all the other land on US 1, who cares? No, it's not waterfront. and we haven't got anything in particular. Really, if we open this way and do nothing, you still end up with a hotel. It's still the best use, and a shopping center. It's not like this is a miracle. It's just that you've gotten rid of 2 ugly buildings. But I maintain that actually that building reclad, that power plant reclad can be gorgeous. What's happening is got cheap, terrible metal. But unfortunately, you have to keep the color, because that's a very cool color, happens to be, but also if you get historic tax credits, renovation tax credits, the very least you're going to ask for is the color. But you can learn to love it. Okay, so this is the clean site. Next. And this is what happens with the clean site. You still get a parking lot, you still get a 2 hotel. But you know what the hotel is like? Do you really need one more sheetrock palace like the Hampton Inn? I mean, do you really want another? I'm staying in one now, and I can't stay awake between the lobby and my room. It's an agony to walk 100 feet in the hallway. So how is that different from the hotel we're proposing? Well, the hallway, you're looking at an art piece 150 feet deep of incredible pipes and stuff. It's the most interesting hallway on earth, right on the roof. Big difference. You know, I want to sort of expose you to that. Yes, you get a hotel, but a hotel that's interchangeable. And then you get the big open space, you get the straight shop that was before, all the restaurants. Now this one happens to have a lot of very clean road that goes straight across. See, the road comes in, goes over, comes across. This is the part that is taken for by the hotel. And then you go across, and one of the differences here is that the sailing club is on the other side. Okay, which is exactly where it is now. And the funny thing is that it actually stays away from the motorboats that are coming in. So this is different because somebody called for this, okay? We weren't looking for trouble. We just said, well, the motorboat, by the way, this dock shouldn't be here now. Okay, because it's now in the harbor. So the motorboats go into the harbor, the sailing boats actually use the existing launch, and then you have the park is here. And this is the first time that this building comes up. This building is a 2-story building that forms a square. It actually forms a paved plaza at this end and a big garden in this end. And it's one of these things that actually we all recognize. It's an open park, but it's got buildings on all sides. And you feel like you're in a room. Okay? And it's only 2 stories, and it keeps everything safe, and it provides, we did the numbers, it provides 100 apartments or less apartments and more offices or whatever you want, incubator space. But frankly, I think it is astonishing that when you have no better idea that you would not have 100 apartments, or actually exactly 115 apartments of 1,000 square feet ready for school teachers and the young people who really, I don't know where they're living, but they're very happy. And anyway, I keep emphasizing, I don't know where the phobia of apartments come from, or actually just dwellings. Yes, you could actually sell it. If you want condominiums, you sell it, but then you lose control and you lose income. The city loses income. This is actually there, so you have the rolling income to maintain it. So, you know, we have this thing, you know, apartments or income, etc. And it's not, to me, an enormously tough choice. You really do need apartments, you really do need incomes, and you do need something that creates a space like that. Next. This is another version. This is actually what I call, this is a flat out everything version. I'm giving you the different scenarios. Okay, this is the scenario that has everything. This is the richest, the one that provides the most income. This is probably something like this that should go up for the referendum, the best one. And if you don't get it, you fall back on one of the others that doesn't have the hotel in the apartments. Okay, you fall back. And I repeat, if you fall back on the other ones, you get most of the stuff but no income. So this would be the preferred plan, but this plan cannot go through, it can't be voted in by the council. It has to come up for referendum. So here you have the hotel, as I said before, a very similar situation. The skate park is back, and you have the facility for the artists, you have the glamping here, and you can see here clearly how the building works. By the way, the building also provides silence for the neighbors to the south. Okay, so it's not only like a wonderful spatial experience, by the way, a perfectly recognizable building. It's the Pocahontas building. You all know it, it's fine, it's actually one of the best buildings downtown, so it's not like this alien thing is coming in. And you can actually, you recognize it. Next. And so this is some detail. You know, pretty much, I mean, there seems to be some implication that you need to do a lot more design. You don't need to do a lot more design. We know exactly how this goes. Okay, we're done. And I think in the presentation they said, this is only the beginning. We're going to keep going. No, it's not the beginning. We're done with consultation, so buckle up, decide, and let's move. I don't think, honestly, that if you bring this up again as if it were day one, it's going to be more beloved. It never does. It actually becomes less beloved. More troubling people show up. And actually, what you will see, and this is 40 years experience, tonight is the night, this proposal is the most popular. Tonight is the most popular. 3 days from now is less popular. 10 days from now is less popular. 15 days is worse. It just goes straight down till it dies. And I don't know what it is about the theology of mediocrity, but somehow in America mediocrity is like gravity. It's just a force. You launch fabulous projects, and for some reason, unexplained, they get worse by the day. Okay? Our best projects were passed the day they were presented. And that includes Stewart, Florida, and several others, including the new town plan for Erie, Colorado. It is, and St. Charles, they're just at their best. As soon as you can get them, get on with it, consultation done. It's already the best in the world. Wear your Nobel Prize and get on with choosing. Okay, so this is now how this works. I showed it. This is very carefully done. Okay, the servicing, the plaza where this happens, the sand volleyball associated with beer, the chapel and the expensive restaurant next door, you know, the slightly thicker thing which is glazed, you know, for incubating actually businesses that require air conditioning, the walkway, the slope that actually gives to that is actually controlled by the hotel, the pool of the hotel, everything, how you reach the hotel lobby, how it reaches the conference center. This is designed. Okay, and we spent a lot of skill and time on getting it right. And it really should be what you do. And this is, by the way, this is the warehouse of the sailing club. This is the sailing club exactly where they want to be, which is watching the sailboats. These are the people coming across the way to have dinner at the restaurants, etc. It's absolutely, it just works like clockwork. This is our skill. Is actually having all these different ideas, and instead of plopping them down anywhere, which is what happened at Riverside Park, they're like a Swiss clock. And so I urge you to actually take it seriously. Next. And then across the way, there's this gorgeous building next door, which are the two tanks with a tent in between that actually forms an auditorium where you can actually sit on the grass here and on chairs back here, you know, slightly elevated. And on the other side, if you have a much smaller, let's say, classical concert, and also you can watch it from you can listen to it from the tents and you can listen to it from the boats, all like that. And by the way, the people here are protected by that building, which actually, that building is not even as tall as this room. In fact, it's as tall, that building would be as tall as this beam. It's like nothing. It's nothing's frightening. It looks like a big building, but it isn't. And those are the 115 apartments or office buildings, whatever you want. They're multi-spaces, and they have the advantage that they actually hide the parking. If you didn't have these buildings, you'd have an open, sunny parking lot getting hot. Why not go ahead and cover them? It's only one story of accommodation above parking, and the parking's higher quality, which would be there anyway. Next. This is what happens across the way. We drew everything. You know, the small site where there's a shopping center, the apartment, next, the apartment, So if you want to shop this out to strip shopping center or any one of the really boring things that you already have, you can go ahead. But this site is really for Trader Joe's. Next. You can do a surface parking lot, believe it or not. Actually, some genius came up and said, why not have a surface parking lot? Thank you, sir. Next. And then you have the parking garage, which actually is $11 million. Great idea. It'll be used, once a year for when Elvis comes. And it'll never be used. So yes, the parking garage, there it is, you call for it. By the way, the bridge that comes across is between $1 and $2 million. Next. And then there's an apartment building, which doesn't look too handsome from above, but it's actually a 2-story apartment building of the Mediterranean kind that has a courtyard and would be very nice apartments. In this case, 31 apartments. And you could actually, since there are so many school teachers that need it, just give it to school teachers or give it to the hospital. So you can actually get, the best quality personnel. Next. And then this is the glorious Trader Joe's. So by the way, you can take this tomorrow and just call them up and say, have we got a site for you? 100% corner, right? Couldn't be better. Incredible demographics. Do you have any better ideas? And then they come in and say, thank you very much. And they might even pay you. Next. This is actually to show that the great room is the size of actually the National Cathedral in Washington, D.C., except wider. Not as beautiful. Next. And these are the things that people brought us. These are just to show that you're not taking any risk. This is Chelsea Market in southern Manhattan that actually, because they didn't have an industrial look, they had to actually buy one. They had to buy from somewhere a kind of industrial warehouse and then insert the coolest set of restaurants in New York. Down here is Domino Park in Brooklyn, in which they took the existing cranes and everything, had an artist choose the perfect blue color, strangely similar to your power plant, and actually became a beautiful park when you're full of this beautiful machinery. Next. And then your own brewery, which is what everybody points to. Do you realize how industrial it is? Do you think this is only about beer? No, it's about beer and the very, very cool look that industrial facilities give you. Again, I'm making the case, perhaps overmuch, don't knock it down. It's an asset. Next. And here's our plan. You keep the facility like this. As you know, the home is over here. This is the hallway that looks into the incredible machinery. These are the rooms, exactly the same height as the existing building, and then a pool. Next. And then this is the horrible building you dislike. Next. But you can actually put the parking you put in front can actually bridge across. You can put windows on it like this, and you can actually have a garden outside your conference center, which is a rare privilege. Most conference centers do not have. You can't step right outside. And of course, the sunset is here, and then on top, you take the chimneys and just use them as mass to create great sails. So you completely transform them from industrial to actually these beautiful, memorable things that will be known up and down the coast. And on top, you can actually generate electricity with the spinners with lighting can actually still signal to the boats you were here. But again, it's an art piece. Next. So this is the other side of the facility. Next, and then here it is with the tents on top and the rooms. Just rooms, but rooms with killer views to the east. Next. And the hall, just with a little paint, is just incredibly beautiful. That's what it is. And by the way, we've introduced the windows already. And so it's a beautiful, beautiful hall. I mean, who wouldn't, this is astonishing. Next. And this is how the plan works. There's a double height lobby here. As it turns out, the upper floor goes down. This is the length of the hall. This is that incredible martini bar control room. This is the lobby of the hotel that connects to here and goes into the rooms. And and you get 140 rooms, which is exactly luck. Pure luck is exactly the number of rooms to entice somebody to run a conference center. Now you need exactly the right developer, probably out of New York or San Francisco or LA, and exactly the right architect. Anybody else will actually fight you and screw it up. But we and other people know people who would actually do this and pay you for it. Astonishingly. Next. This is the section. This is the gardens off the room. This is the dens of the hotel. So that's the technical drawing. And then the beautiful mangroves on the other side. You know where I keep saying this is where the glamping, you need to keep supplementing it with native species. Next. And then you just do this fantastic kind of structure in between that, you know, could not be cooler. You know, there's no memory of the tanks. It's just like, wow, really? Next. By the way, I warn you, this does not keep Vero. Sorry. And if you must, you can have a rock climb, the world's largest rock climbing wall on the outside. This is the glamping tents on the mangroves like that. And then this is the auditorium on the other side, and this is the tent that actually connects. This is for the chamber music, smaller groups, and this is for the larger. I'm not going all the way to rock music, just Elvis. Next. By the way, the next generation up at the community center actually is Elvis. It's no longer, big band. Everything moves up. By the time we're done, it might actually be the Rolling Stones. Next. And just one thing because it was called for, you can also have temporary housing like this, then until you use it. This is actually called a park hall. And we designed this to use in spaces that will not be developed for a while, but that are beautifully located. So you put this is a 2-bedroom unit, costs $50,000, houses 2 people happily in separate bedrooms with 2 baths. And when you're done, you pull it out and go somewhere else. So you don't have to commit to the final, the final use. But they pay a lot of rent, or ground rent. So you don't always have to have what I call the climax condition. It can evolve actually to what it will ultimately become. Next. This is where they cleaned it up. Just so you know. Next, where's that? And then this is the structure. This is some very accurate drawings of what it's like to go from Big Blue down the walkway with the there's open warehouses with the chapel at the end, actually sitting in a kind of berm like that. I mean, quite romantic, possibly with a glass wall in the back. And then here's one of the restaurants, probably the white tablecloth restaurant, and then there's one behind. This is the incredibly popular sand volleyball. This is the sailing club. This is where kids hang out. This is actually the teenagers restaurant. This is the skating park. And then you have continuously on the outside, every inch of the waterfront is actually accessible. But accessible in an interesting way. This isn't just a boardwalk. This is a boardwalk in which cool things are happening all the way along. And they actually vary. It's really worth going from one end to the other. Because they say, we need a boardwalk. Oh, that's good for about 300 feet. And then you say, what next? Somebody had the idea of actually putting pavilions here, little gazebos, so that in festival days, you could have even more activity. And this is the harbor for the yacht that's coming across the way. But this is really designed. And so, if you like it, let's go with it. Next. The chapel. You see everything thought through. The slopes coming down. The special places. Look how wide the setback is from the waterfront. It's really a cool place. You can sit in the grass. This is where the playgrounds are. People say, where are the playgrounds going to be? Well, here they are. This is where the kids play. Next. And this is the sailing club. With exactly what they want, with the towers and with the sailing. By the way, they restore boats in the first floor, which is a completely cool activity. Oh my God, I can watch a boat being restored, and you can pull them in and out on a good day and watch the restoration. And then this is the kids' restaurant on this side. There's a lot happening here. Next. This is the image again. This is what we're looking at. So this is very, very active. Boats going in and out, kids' confusion, activity, good life stuff. Not just, hey, let's have a festival. It's just every day something will be happening here, even slightly dangerous, which is actually very exciting here. Don't underestimate sand volleyball. Next. Oh, we did the skate park. Okay, so this is the skate park as well, behind the restaurants. This is the skating park, and again, it's actually managed by the sailing club, the same demographic, young kids. Next. And then this is the detail here from the hotel. By the way, the neighbor to the left, to the north, asked us to put a wall here so that the cars turning, the headlight will not hit them. And don't forget things that actually make sense. And so there's a wall on this side. This is the drop off for the hotel, and this is where you enter. So from the hotel, right from the lobby, you understand. Hey, this is really cool. What's happening here? There's a whole, just all these things that don't happen in other hotels. Next. God, are we done? Next. Next. Okay, speak of Vero Beach, that's you. Next. Oh, this is just whatever. Next. Okay, that's enough. Sorry. By the way, this is the presentation of record. This is the videotape, and this is actually what goes in the videotape and explains things. That's why it took so long. It explains things, and if you think there's no time to listen, we have been listening. This was our chance to talk. So that's why it took so long. Forgive me here.
Well, I don't know if anybody wants to get started up here with the steering committee, but we are also, okay. Well, I will just say again what I said before. I'm thrilled that we have DPZ here. I think they're incredibly creative. They're pros at this. They've done this all over the world. Every time I would go to a meeting, and I went to every single one, so this is my 14th meeting this week, and it changed every time according to what people wanted and what people asked for, and I love how responsive they are. This is the first time I saw the last plan today, and I am amazed how it can keep changing and how wonderful it is, and my head is just spinning with ideas and thoughts, and I'm sure you all are the same way. Emily, would you like to say anything?
I never missed a chance not to say something. I know it's getting late, but I don't think we've ever had anything in this community that was as exciting as what we're doing right now. Also, the nice thing is, it doesn't all have to be done at one time. And ideas will change through the years. The younger people who are going to be with us in the years to come, they're going to have better ideas. So, but I can't tell you, I am terribly, terribly impressed with the number of people who have given us their opinion, because that's what we asked for. We asked for it to go to the people, and we needed their opinions, and the figures are just over the top. So anyway, I'm so glad you all are here tonight. So am I.
I usually like to go last. I have last word. But I'm Joe Graves, and this is one of the reasons I want to run for council, because I want to be involved in this project. It's super, super exciting, and I knew when we got the fortunate to have DPZ come in, I knew what they had done at Windsor. Super exciting to have somebody like that come into our community and propose ideas. And it really hit me the impact of all this on our community. When I drove in tonight, I couldn't find a parking space, because usually you drive in and, it's a 625 and you can pull right in and be here, and, I had to park across the street. And so it was really great to see all the citizens here, all the people here getting involved in this decision, getting involved in government, and making your opinions known. Because the worst thing is for us to try to make decisions and not know what you want, and then we make a decision and then you tell us what you want. And that really puts us in a terrible situation. So it's really cool to see these ideas and these out-of-the-box thinking. I really love out-of-the-box thinking. I love creative thinking. I love artsy thinking. I can't do any of that stuff. That's why I love it and I respect it. And I love people like Andres that can do that kind of stuff. I really never thought you could make an old power plant look good. And it's really kind of a cool concept, and I understand what he's doing. I'm wavered back and forth on it, obviously, and when I was first asked at first meeting, I'm like, it's got to come down. And then I stepped in and I was like, well, it's got to stay up. And then I'm like, well, how's this going to work? And now tonight I'm like, this is really cool. So I'm sure a lot of you have gone through that same scenarios in your mind. As Vicki was saying, your head's kind of spinning because there's a lot of information. But to have that kind of activity, recreation, and things going on in our city is really, really exciting. It looks like an exciting space. I know like people that are my age, you want your kids to come back to Vero, and they all say, well, there's nothing to do in Vero. Why would I come back in Vero? And this is a good start in getting young people, attracting young people into our community. I understand the issue with housing, but we do have a need for housing for young professionals moving back in our community to fill essential places of work at the hospital, teaching, law enforcement, etc. So I look forward to the future working on this and getting this done. And really appreciate Andres tonight in that presentation, top notch. This is first class. Here in Vero, our little town of Vero, we have somebody like Andres that comes here, gives a first class presentation, and really gives us a vision of what could be. And it's just really exciting. I'm proud to be part of it.
Can we have those of you who worked so hard all week long stand up and just say your name out loud? I didn't have the list earlier, and I feel so grateful to all of you because you really worked hard. I was saying, I don't think you were here, but I stuck my head in today, and you all were just down working so hard, and I feel like your names should be heard. So would you mind starting?
I'm happy any place. Standing right. Joseph Albert.
Thank you. I'm sorry. I keep cutting people off and getting names wrong, so thank you.
Hi, Linda Moore. I really want to say that I'm so excited at the amount of civic engagement that has occurred. I mean, from the very beginning, when I first met Irina, we were like, how are we going to get everybody involved? And I'm overwhelmed by the amount of involvement that there has been and the amount of excitement for this project. And DPC has done such an incredible job of taking so many different ideas and fitting them together in a way that I think it's super important that they have really put in something for every age group. So from littles to teenagers and older people of every income bracket, everybody can all enjoy the space because it's really important to me that this is for all of the town, it's for everybody. And I think that, this is a very good, comprehensive look, and as Amelie pointed out, this is not going to happen tomorrow. It's going to take some time, little by little, in steps and phases, but this is just so exciting, such an amazing story.
My name is John Petunio, and I look at this project as something that's going to be uniting land side and beach side. It's a place where the citizens, all ages can come and meet together and exchange ideas, and a forum for entertainment, a forum for recreation, a forum for culture, and so on and so forth. And this is why I think this is very exciting. DPZ and what they have done, the ability to translate ideas onto paper so you can visualize is very important. It's been done in an amazing amount of time with the turnaround time, which is it's very difficult to coordinate this. They've done a tremendous job. The inputs of all the different charrettes shows that the fact that the people are engaged and they want this to succeed, and it'll take a period of time for all this to be phased in, but I think the groundwork has been laid for a very successful project for all of Vero Beach, and so all our citizens can enjoy it.
I'm Robert Brackett, member of the City Council. Like Vicki, I think I went to 13 of the meetings. I missed one, and it was an extraordinary process to watch it all take place and transform. I will tell you that we all knew that DPZ can design, but my hat is off to Andres and his team for, I think we put them through the ringer a little bit with the meeting in public when we had all the meetings. And he actually mentioned that it was different for them, and I'm pleased they did that, because that was one of my concerns early on. I struggled with whether we get the correct public input. And if we didn't get it, they missed their opportunity, because we've been out there, and his team has been out there, and the website's been there. So for that, I congratulate them. I'm excited about the project. I'm waiting to see what happens next, where we go, what we do. I think it's going to be great for our community. I am one of these third generation people. I was one of those ones that didn't want to come back. When I did come back, glad I did. But I'm excited to see what happens. So there's going to be a new phase for Vero Beach.
Hi, I'm Ray Neville on City Council. When you saw those renderings, didn't you wish you were right there, right now? Absolutely beautiful. What an incredible job they've done to visualize for us what can be possible. And I think it's also incredible that we're going to be able to save a monument to progress of the Vero Beach area. Without that power plant, we wouldn't have we'd have it now, but we wouldn't have had so quickly the residents to the north on the island, and to the south on the island, and to the west. And I want to just say something nice about Mayor Harry Offit in 1956, when he was the proponent of this, and he had a tough time getting it through. And the nickname he was given by the Press Journal for the project was Offit's Folly. Think about that. He saw it through, got it done. And then if we can keep this as a memorial to our forward thinking in this community, I think that's wonderful. And the idea of the artistic portrayal of those incredible machinery with some light and paint, like as Andres says, world-class art. I think people will come just to see it. So this is an incredibly exciting opportunity for us in this community, and I hope you all share that view. Thank you.
I'm Mike Johansson, and I'm not on the City Council. I've got two questions. Laura, the Vice Mayor, has told me that this is our last chance as a steering committee to ask questions to Andres and his team. So, first question is, and I think I know the answer, is I'm assuming that the Youth Sound Foundation has approved the proximity of the sailing boat club house and the launch facilities and the boat storage facilities, and the proximity of the power boats right there from one of the drawings I saw. I'm assuming that that's all okay with it. And my second question is, listening to Andres start out, we're at the most popular point where we're going to be. And we have 10 months until we get to a referendum. At which point, I'm led to believe this idea will be somewhere underneath the floor in popularity. How do we maintain the momentum and the good feeling we all got here tonight about this?
The thing about the approval, we showed there was an earlier plan in which the principal building of the Sailing Foundation was actually up in the back of the
was in the back of the harbor. And it was much closer to their storage, to where it crossed. And you saw that in the first and second plan. And then they requested that we put it up to the corner, which is exactly because from there you can see the sailboats. So we displaced the restaurants to the north and put the and we thought that was a good argument. Beautiful sails, so we put them in the front, at the corner. Necessarily, that made them further away from their storage. However, the entire harbor belongs to them. You know, so it's not, there's nothing interspersed. Yes, they're further from the storage, but that's what they wanted, but it's all theirs. And by the way, they didn't want to share the harbor before. But at the same time, we had people with motorboats who said, and where do we go? Right? And then they said, and we put them away from the sailing boats. But they said the deep water is closer to this side. So then it gradually became closer. And that's actually one of the examples in which the Sailing Foundation got much of what they wanted, but there are other people who wanted something else. However, if you see read a report, we will have all boat traffic managed by the sailors. We have assigned all waterfront to the Sailing Foundation. So they'll tell the motorboats what to do. In other words, it won't be adversarial. There's a lot about this that's actually software that doesn't have to be actually resolved by design, by hardware. So we basically assign them the full management of the waterfront. By the way, they could also ban the boats when they, during sailing times, and say after dinner you can come in. There's a lot of solutions. But we respect the Sailing Foundation as their primary role, there. They came first, they're the best funded, and in some ways, they deserve the most attention in the beginning. And it's their footprint. It's all their footprints right on. Our renderings are better than theirs, but other than that, we have to redraw their stuff. You need a better architect.
Laura Moss, we just heard how the power plant was revolutionary in its day. And think about how often do you get to have the opportunity to have a revolution in the same place so many years later. But think of all the similarities. The power plant at the time had all these wires that connected everyone and gave everyone something that was wanted, needed, desired. And that power plant still, I put before you, still has that same power. And by that, I mean it can connect all of us and create a tremendous sense of community. I mean, anyone who's been inside, you feel the power of that building. And you see all the wonderful things that we can have outside of it. So I really look forward to doing that, to using this space for a second revolution, if you will, that will give us a nexus, a place of power, a place for a sense of community. I think that that's the best purpose, best and highest use of that property. And the only thing that I am going to be very, very careful about is that all of it, always, is for everyone. Always. For every single person, that it's always open to all. Thank you.
There was a second, or first question you had, is how do we actually process this when actually there's a tendency for it to worse over time? And this is something that was actually explained to me by the mayor of Lake Charles, Louisiana, and he said, we pass it in principle. Okay, and then the planning department submits each separate issue or each separate project for consideration. And you will find that many of them go quickly because they're not controversial, and then some are held back and some are killed. If you don't do that, if you're thinking of it as a whole, the most difficult corner somewhere will hold everything down and keep it, and depress everybody, demoralize people. So immediately you pass it in principle. We like this plan, they listen to everybody, and then we will submit this in increments, and then you bring it up for city council discussion. And then they live or die, but things go ahead. Like we get, this has no problem at all. Let's go with it. Let's start recruiting let's say a hotelier. The Sailing Foundation is happy that moves forward, and so forth. The glamping is controversial, fine. You know, that holds us up, but not everything. That's the process that's used. And by the way, I can submit the document, the legal document, which has been used many times, of how you pass it in principle. Last time it was used was in Erie, Colorado. Perfect. And you can just, you know, change the language, pass it in principle, and then your own department brings it up.
I'm Mark Cripson, I'm on the steering committee. And the only question I have about this, it all looks cool, but the boats can't, between the sailors and the motorboats, they don't commingle. They gotta be separated.
They have, is that your question, that they have to be, or should
Yeah, they
they?
have to be separated.
You do know they enter the harbor at many different places. Like the boat harbor is entered from the north. It's actually enclosed, it's boxed in from the south. So they can actually come in they can stay away from the sailboats. Now, they do have to share the lagoon, but they don't share the same mouth of water. You can look at that in more detail. Well,
The reason I was asking that is, I had the idea of a restaurant there on the water, and people would come in their boats, but if you can't park your power boat or get it in with the sailors, then that screws that idea up.
Well, if you look in detail, you will see that it's about as solved as it is humanly possible.
What?
It's as solved as it is humanly possible. Just like gymnasia have to be, they're the wets and the dries in the gym. And ultimately they have to get to the locker room. Okay, and so the motor and the sails have to share the water. I mean, you're sharing the lagoon, but really the entrances are as far apart as they can be.
Can I go ahead? Thanks. I'm Richard Baker. I think I was put on this committee by Vice Mayor Moss to be the environmentalist on the committee, and so I do have some concerns on environmentally. I would like to see more green space. There is a lot of green space there now, and I'm not sure that we need 4 restaurants. And I am concerned with having the restaurants there with the bars, and we're talking about the bars, and we have kids in sailboats, we'll have kids in kayaks, and yet you got 4 restaurants and another, what would you call that fancy bar, another bar over there? There's gonna be a lot of drinking going on, and even though these entrances are separated, and I don't think that's that far, these boats, both the motorboats and the yachts and the sailing boats will be commingling in that lagoon. And I think that's opening up for a lot of danger. You read in the paper now, a lot of people are driving their boats drunk. And I think there is a real big safety concern. I'm also concerned about all the seawalls that are going around there. I'd like to have it more open, more environmentally, where there's action between the sea and the land. We need more green space in that whole area. There's a lot of people living on the west of the area who could utilize this. And I've heard some discussion, well, you can go over to cross the bridge and go to our other parks that are on the beach. But a lot of these people won't want to be going across there to take a walk, to see a little bit about nature, to watch birds. And so I am concerned that we don't need that much development. I would like to see half of it be kind of green and encourage more kids. I like getting kids out there and being more active, but we need places where kids can go. And I would like to think I like that part about the art, and I also think we need to think about the history of Vero Beach and how that power plant is a great part of that history. And we could put a little bit of history in there in addition to the art. I think that's it. Thanks.
I'm Tony Young, and I just first off want to say that Andre has done a wonderful job with his team. My earlier life was a planner in an environmental department, okay? So planning is something that I'm very comfortable with, and I think the conceptually, the total idea is, out of the park. And I wanted this discussion because you have to understand that this is the first opportunity that in a public, because we can only speak, the committee can only speak in a public forum as this, okay? So this is important because otherwise, it's just incrementalized. But over the week and through the website, I think there's been a tremendous amount of input and ideas that Andre has done masterfully with. My primary concern has been voiced right here, and that is I need to better appreciate the synchronization with the youth sailing and the power boats. If you visited youth sailing, their regattas are held to the south of the bridge and to the east of the lagoon, okay? And the potential there is during the peak activity times when you would want to have a regatta, we would want to have the youth sailing, there will be the deconfliction necessary for the powerboat operations, okay? The design has balanced a lot of that, and I applaud on for it. The north side of the bridge, the idea of the walk area is phenomenal. The idea of the conversion of the power plant is phenomenal. The walk space by the front of the eastern part of the property, I think, is tremendous. And again, the trick will be to understand how you can manage the two maritime portions of it. But I'm appreciative of everybody here on the steering committee. I think any one of you can reach out to any one of us, and we'll have open ears. And we want this to succeed because tremendously, this is the opportunity as you help us make this come to fruition, where you're going to touch the future of the next 50 years. And that's a reality. And Vero brought in imagination and quality with Andre, as we have done with McKee Gardens, as we have done with Laurel Riding Jackson. This is the standard of Vero Beach, okay? So I'm very confident that as we implement this, because now we're going to go from the visioning to the implementation stage, that we'll reach the right answer. So I'm an optimist there. I'm just raising a concern in regards to the segment. Thank you.
I think what we'll do is just the lateness of the time, all those comments, we'll make sure they're answered on the website. So look, maybe the next week we'll have to get them all transcribed, and then we'll get them answered and post them to the website.
Most of it is clarification. Somehow misunderstanding or something I didn't mention, and then there continue to be some concerns that were the baffles for the example. I didn't put them in. But generally, we respect this like we have before, but it's a lot, there's a lot of participation. I was going to say something about, because the controversy of the two boats. I think that anything that can be done, what was odd about the sailing club is that they wanted the harbor, as opposed to what they're doing now, which is launching to the south. So as soon as they traveled to the other side, to the north, they actually began to get complicated with everything else that was happening there. That's really what happened. But we can't have a plan that leaves the sailing entirely to the south, that you launch the old way and everything, but that's not what they asked for. They wanted the harbor and they wanted the full, and they did see that, we put the building, so, but we can always revert to putting the sailing to the south again, and we can actually just prevent the northwest. If that's the way it goes. What's a living shoreline? What is that?
Well, I'm very concerned about all the seawalls. We have so many seawalls in our lagoon now, and we don't have that interaction now. We're talking about getting some people to put.
Okay, I know what you're saying. The existing, the north already has the seawalls. That it actually causes chaos and pollution to break that out. But the south has living seawalls, all of it. And of course, that's part of what we're saying, we just need to revegetate it. But the entire southern edge can actually revert to something very close to mangroves, with some help. So what we have is actually, as usual, the best planning is always, the answer is both. So in the north we have the hard ones where they already exist, and in the south we can supplement the other ones.
But it's not just tying up your boat or taking off, it's what you're putting into the lagoon, where they're going to have their regattas and things, and how you won't be able to stop these people that are coming in, eating and drinking, going out and into their boats, and I think it could be a problem.
Well, I would say there's one thing that has always reminded me. You know how our streets are unwalkable? How you can't cross them? Okay, it's, for example, that boulevard. The reason is they're designed for the drunk at midnight. It's a technical term. And so as a consequence, if you design for the drunk at midnight, you end up with people, would there be no complexity? The lanes are 12 feet wide, the turns are very high speed, and pedestrians all over America have been exterminated by the attitude that we have to design for the worst possible condition. I think it's possible to actually say, yes, there will be accidents, but it's very unlikely. And we don't have to design for the worst condition. It's a phenomenon that has actually made so much of America unlivable to pedestrians, giving the car priority overall. I think that actually giving nature priority everywhere on this site, as opposed to half the frontage, may have that similar result, frankly. I mean, I say this respectfully, but humans also have a right to the water.
We've had a lot of comments about the value of the assets, and we're going to deal with all those as we go through this with council and with you again. We're going to meet many more times in public. We've been at this almost 3 hours tonight, and unless there's something new, I think we've got all your comments. We're going to answer those, and we will announce when the next meetings are going to be, so that we're all fresher when we come to this. But I want to thank everybody for coming out all week, and thank Andres and his team. Great job. I mean, he's worked 2 weeks this week and one, so Jason, thank you.